So given that we've heard from the lawyers, I'm really curious to hear from the community about how it's feeling on that end. Maybe Uncle Bobby can fill us in.
Yes. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you all for being here, too. This is an extremely important matter. I am affectionately known to the community as Uncle Bobby. I'm the uncle of Oscar Grant, the young man that was killed on January 1st, 2009 at the Fruitvale BART station. Let me ask, how many of you have not heard of Oscar Grant? Okay, so I'm speaking to a community that have heard of Oscar Grant. And before I go any further, let me just acknowledge the pain and the hurt that is in this room. I want to acknowledge the Ernest Duenas family here, who is the mother and father of Ernest Duenas, who was killed in Manteca, California. Thank you for being here. I want to recognize Miss Denise Friday, who was the mother of Kobe Friday, who was killed in Stockton, California. And also want to recognize the supporters of Chinedu Okobi out of San Mateo, who was killed, as you know, by taser. And if there are any other families in here, definitely I want to thank you for being here. Of course, I know many have come to support myself, which I'm really appreciative of. And much love goes definitely to Catherine for the work that she's been doing on our behalf in pushing 1421. So thank you, Catherine. Oh, and most definitely, before I go any further, let me recognize my beautiful wife, who has been my backbone. So, but as stated, I'm a system engineer by education, but I'm a social justice advocate by heart. So I have not been, educated in the skills of the legal term that, of course, Michael Raines spoke of, as well as Catherine. But what I will do is try to appeal to you as a family that's been impacted by this heinous act of murder when it comes to police officers in here, not just in the state of California, but in this world. There is no horror comparable to the loss of a loved one to those that you thought were here to serve and protect your family. The pain is forever severed in your memory, and perhaps for me, it's because it could have been prevented. That's why we're here, to stop this type of horror and pain that we families experience and have to live with the rest of our lives. I was really troubled and had to really do a lot of praying to be able to sit on this panel and talk about this subject from the pain that I experienced in the courtroom. And Mr. Michael Raines did smile at me and shook my hand, so thank you. But a lot of that pain came from his position, his argument to protect an officer that we knew blatantly murdered my nephew. And I've been carrying this pain for the last 10 years, and now I'm on a panel with that one that represented the murderer of my loved one. Can you imagine how I have to think about how to breathe through this and even orientate myself to be clear to you about the impact and the importance of us making sure that this does not happen again. The power of the police is the most significant responsibility that we can give any public official that walks this earth, that have been given the right to use deadly force. That responsibility got to be guided by some form of legislation, accountability, moral sense to protect the citizens of this community. And our failure to think of the most important ways in how to make that a reality is a crime on us. Because it's really not even about us that are sitting in this room. It is about our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. Because if we fail to bring about real systemic change today, what kind of life will they have? If, and I'm sure we all must think that this is a bad problem now, but our failure to fix it today will be their demise tomorrow. That's why I have taken it upon myself to become a real social justice advocate concerning police accountability and transparency. And from my heart, I call on all of you to take this matter into your own hearts and do what you can to make sure another life is not taken wrongfully by these officers that are given this responsibility to use deadly force. If we do not speak to that, if we do not create laws and legislations that fix this problem, our children will not even have a chance. The divide that we see right now that exists between the community and police is only going to get wider, and it's going to get worse. This is a state of emergency we're at. And so for all of us to be sitting in this room, I'm clear you have kind of begun to feel that because it's been so consistent. And so to talk about this piece of legislation, SB 1421, is critical. As John stated, over 40 years, the secrecy of the police department has been protected before January 1st, 2019. This is the most secretive state when it comes to police than any state in this country. We must know that the state of California kills more people in this country than any other state. So we argued in 2015 to bring in some data to really believe and make us see that there is a problem. And the passage of AB 71, use of force data collection, speaks exactly to why we're saying SB 1421 as well as AB 392 is so critical. Because if you search that data, it tells you how many people are being killed. And it's understated as far as I'm concerned, because not every agency, for what I know, is actually participating in it or being required to make this report. But those that are reporting, to cite a couple of examples, is that the last 2 years, on an average, 700 to almost 800 people have received excessive use of force by the police here in the state of California. And we'll say on an average, 350 to 400 have either been shot, and half of that killed. So if we're talking about 150 to 170 people every year being killed by the police in the state of California, what that tells me, since the murder of Oscar Grant, over 1,200 people in the state of California has been killed by the police in this state. We should be ashamed of that. And because some of us have morally begun to address this issue, we argued in 2016 for AB 953, which is the Racial Identification Profiling Act. And in that data, here we go with data, it tells us that basically a black man and even a brown man in this state almost have a 50-50 chance of surviving a police stop. Then people ask, well, why they run? Think about it. I don't know what kind of officer that's going to pull me over and what he might do at that moment in time. And so these young people are not even really willing to take that chance. That's the reality that we face. This is real data. And of course, then we begin to argue concerning the transparency of that data being brought to the community, being brought to the public. Let's really identify what's in these officers' file to see if we can really fix this problem. And of course, on January 1st, 2019, thanks to Nancy Skinner, Senator Nancy Skinner, for co-authoring SB 1421, it passed, along with AB 748. AB 748 is the video and audio released within 45 days. Because as many of you know, especially with Oscar case, video became a very important tool. So we all today are our brother's keeper. When we pull out our cell phone and record what's happening, we are now identifying the problem and can help that family overcome the pain and the horror and the thoughts of what happened, clearing their mind that either their loved one shouldn't have never been murdered and that the officer was wrong, or conclude that at least I can rest in peace. I pray for my loved one. You hear what I'm saying? Because the worst pain that any family can go through is not knowing what happened. And then when you ask, you're told, we can't reveal it to you. And you got video recording. If your officers didn't do anything wrong, why not? That becomes our question. For us, we were just blessed that there were commuters on that train, had their cell phones, and was able to record, and they revealed, and they uploaded it to YouTube for the world to see the horror that we experienced. So it was the community that really, I have to thank, that embraced us, cried with us, went back and forth to court with us, prayed for us, but most importantly, was unafraid to pull out their cameras and capture a wrong act and then upload it to YouTube, utilizing their First Amendment right to speak to that very injustice. And as we know, because of that, because of the support of labor, ILW Local 10 shutting down the ports here on the West Coast, especially here in the Bay Area, we got, for the first time, an officer arrested, charged, convicted, and sent to jail. Never has it ever been done here in the state of California before that date. And to my knowledge, it might have been Michael Raines' first loss in a court proceeding hearing, in a trial. And that only can happen because the community was involved. So, in saying all that, 1421, what I was going to talk about it, I didn't realize that my public records request would be sent to me 2 days ago. So if we all been watching the news, we know Oscar's name and what happened has been just splattered all over the state of California. And what we are seeing is what we've been saying as a family a long time ago, that Johannes Mersley was a murderer, and that Tony Peroni created the chaos and the madness that caused Mersley to kill my nephew. The Myers-Nave report speaks to the very essence of what I'm saying. The facts cannot be denied. Though, I have to say, as skillful as Michael Raines is, he definitely made many believe that what they saw in that video was untrue. He's a gifted attorney. We call him a pit bull. He didn't play. So, you know, I was troubled to come sit up here on this panel with him just because of his dramatic self and the way he expressed himself in that courtroom. Very convincing. I'm serious, very convincing. But piss you off too, because he will do what it takes to win. And that means that common sense legislation is not even a reason, and I shouldn't be speaking on his behalf, but this is my own personal thinking, does not matter to him whether it's about saving lives or not. It's about what the law says and how we interpret it, and therefore, I don't care how many people die, but this is how the law is going to be interpreted, and it's going to be standing this way, and if I can win based on that, the moral issue of it doesn't even matter. That's what we're dealing with when we're talking about criminal justice and criminal trials against, as far as I'm concerned, police officers. Because as you know, never has one ever been convicted in the state of California since before Oscar, and not a single one out of those 1,200 shootings, those 1,200 deaths, has been convicted since. It has to be at least one out of 1,200 that has done something wrong that justify him being arrested, charged, convicted, and sent to jail. Not just Johannes Messerly. Those numbers are not, you get what I'm saying? So we got to address that. That's the reality of what we're living in. And then many of you want to know why the community shuts down bridges, go into spaces to stop business as usual. Because there's an outcry for justice. There's an outcry to hold officers accountable for the wrongs that we know that are wrong. And our failure to do that will cause an internal implosion, and what we thought we saw in the 60s will not be nothing compared to what can happen in the future. We must take that in consideration. 1421 has given us an opportunity to fix it. And I'll say a little bit about that in closing. An example would be with our case and my request. We argued that Johannes Messerly had a history of excessive use of force in that courtroom, but it couldn't be argued in front of the jury or all of you because the law said that you can't know what's in their file. At that time, we only knew about 4 incidents. One in 2008, Kenneth Carruthers, and 3 other while he was on the police force of BART from 2006 to 2008. So 4 we argued for. But if you read the report, it says just in 2008 alone, he had 6 excessive force use before he murdered Oscar Grant, making it 7. So that telling me that he had about 10 incidents of excessive use of force within a 2.5-year time period on the police force. Isn't that obvious that we got a troubled police officer in our community? And had the agency comprehended that there was some form of their responsibility to stop this type of behavior before a life is taken, it's shameful as far as I'm concerned. So this 1421 allows us to take a look at how agencies has dealt with these criminal police officers. Now, let me make this clear. I'm not advocating that all police officers are bad, but we all know that they exist. There's a small percent of them that exist. So my question has always been, if that's the case, then why don't the good ones tell on the bad ones? That's a reality. But because of this blue code, they don't. But I believe today, because of 1421, they will have to. Because Tony Peroni is the reason why Oscar Grant is dead. Tony Peroni, as the report says, lied on a continuous basis throughout his interrogation concerning the murder of Oscar Grant. Tony Peroni was just fired. And for all you know, he may have a gun on his side working in the police department in New York. That's a reality. Because we have no data tracking tool to follow officers that are involved in heinous acts like that, to not go to another policing agency and conduct the same behavior. That's a reality. Alan Bluford is a good example of that. The officer came from New York under investigation for many use of force acts. Gets here to the state of California within 1.5 years time on the force. He kills Alan Bluford. Where's he at today? Maybe in another agency, or maybe he really retired. We don't know. Johannes Messerly is an officer that the judge made the argument that he should be put on non-revocable parole. meaning that once he does his 11 months, he gets out, have no contact with the police for 1 year, he can get his weapon back, he can come back to the BARC police station and become an officer again, which he tried. And we as a community came out in outrage, and BARC decided not to hire him. Of course, it's rumored to us that he goes down to Long Beach, puts a gun on his side, is now working for a policing agency in Long Beach. Then all of a sudden, for what we hear, his name is changed because it's rumored that he was involved in an officer-involved shooting. But now his name is changed, so he's in a black hole. I haven't verified or validated all the rumors that we get, but it's my job and my responsibility to make sure that troubled individuals like them should not ever work for a policing agency or have a gun on their side. That's why 1421 is so critical to the families, because it substantiates what we've been saying all the time in writing by the agency, that this officer lied, that this officer participated in sexual acts or conduct unbecoming of a police officer, or this officer actually killed someone wrongfully. I shouldn't say killed, let's say murdered someone wrongfully and basically got away with it. This is a reality that we face, and we can fix this simply by understanding what 1421 is going to reveal, and then bringing into law the Accountability Act of AB 392 that can hold officers accountable and send them to jail. That is the only message that will clean up this problem that we got with officers on the force today. Accountability. Thank you.